All right, let's get some CISSP recordings done, shall we? Ben's in for it. All right, fix my camera a little more. All righty. Oop, fix the necklace. These are the critical things before recording. And Ben's in. Okay, so CISSP, I am moving on up into the network layer for communications and data security. All right, so let's share PowerPoint because we love PowerPoint or not. And start my recording. And here we go. Welcome back. Let's talk about the network layer. So I want to move that around on my screen. Hey, who's here with me? Thanks for joining. All right, try this again. All right, welcome back. Welcome back. We are moving. Siri, thanks for joining. All right, so we're in the network layer. All right. Let me start that over. Oops. All right, welcome back. We are moving on up into the network layer. Oh, the excitement. Things do get a little bit more exciting as we move into this layer compared to especially physical layer from a security perspective. But the network layer, so let's get its basics first. The network layer's job is addressing. That's its job, is to address, and the common address that we're using at this point is IP version 4, IP version 6. Let me change my pen color. I'll edit that right on out. Color. All right. All right, so we're moving up into Finn. Pardon me. I gotta work. Okay, what was I saying? All right, so addressing. So the common address that we're using is IP, Internet Protocol. We are very much in version 4, and we have been for decades. IP version 6 is not new. It's been around for decades, but we are finally using it. So that's kind of fun. Now, in addressing, the point of the address is to give us a way to find the other side. The best analogy that I have for addresses is phone numbers. That is the best analogy for this layer. So that phone numbers with my phone, I have one phone number, and it doesn't matter where I go, you can find me. So it's not quite the same there. So let me try that again. So with phones, I have a phone number, and with that phone number, you can dial it and actually find my phone. Looking at my phone number, I'm from Northern Virginia. So we're going to see something similar with IP addresses. They are geographically significant. So that phone number that we have is going to help us find that device that we're trying to talk to, whether it's a web camera or a server or anything else. I still don't like the pen color. Hey, receptionist, how are you? Let's try yellow. That's better. So the phone number allows us to find the phone. IP address allows us to find our destination. But with IP addresses, we have some unique characteristics that are different from phone numbers. With phone numbers, I would say they're best equated to a unicast address. My phone number reaches me, and that's it. So unicast is addressing one device. Every device on a network needs an IP address. If we're using IP, every device on a network needs an address. So unicast allows us to address a single device, and then when you send data to that single IP address, it goes to that single device. Other devices could see it. It could be routed in all kinds of different directions, possibly. But with unicast, only one device is going to be listening for it. So IP ethics comes to mind. Devices are trained, it's all in the coding, to listen for their address. And if it's not addressed to them in any way, shape, or form, they ignore it. So no snooping. That's a security issue, so we'll deal with that one later. Multicast addresses is many. So M makes it good for many. So something like a video conference. If we were doing a video conference call at the office and you want to address, I don't know, 5 people, a multicast address allows us to address those 5, and the video would be then sent to those 5 devices. Multicasting really turns our network into copy machines, so that if I am sending something that is a multicast, when I transmit, I send one copy. But the routers out there would make multiple copies and send them to the right destinations. So good for something like video. Cisco loves to use this thing for video. I don't know how much they use it these days, but that's where it has been in the past. Broadcast addresses is all. Hey, everybody, how are you? So broadcast address goes out, and anybody and everybody could be listening to that traffic. And if you see a broadcast address, then you collect that data and you read that data. In my head, devices are real. So I'm thinking like in server is you. Things are a little bit weird in my head. Teaching networking for 3 decades has turned everything animated in my head. All right, now that's the addressing that we have with IP version 4. IP version 6 has all of that, but it also adds in Anycast. Anycast is first of many. So there are many, many different devices that could respond to an Anycast request, but the first device that it hits that can accept it is the one that would accept it. So it's like, hey, I need help. Something like that. And then the first person goes, I can help you. So that kind of logic, it's, hey, I need an answer to my question. I don't know, maybe Amazon would be a good analogy for it. You try and get to Amazon server. Hey, I'm looking for an Amazon request. So Amazon.com or Amazon.de or whatever you have. And the first server that actually has the ability to respond because it's got open space will go, okay, hey, I gotcha, and send back that web page. I'm not saying it works that way for Amazon, so don't go too far with that. But that is the logic of Anycast. All right, so IP version 4, IP version 6 is our most common address. We have had a lot of other addresses at layer 3. So we are at the network layer. We have moved up to layer 3. And remember, when we are looking at anything at anything in networking, my 3 questions. First question is, what is it? What's its purpose? So IP version 4, its purpose is addressing. And all the stuff I just said, if that all makes sense, IPv4 is addressing. That's kind of all you need to say to sum it up. If that makes sense, you're in good shape. Second question, what layer? We're at the network layer. Third question is there any security designed into it? And if the answer is no, generally what we're going to do is move on. Not so much the case here. So IP version 4, the answer is no. There's no security in it. But IP is so critical to networking that it goes into the category of you should know these. So things like IP, routers, MPLS, switches are in the category of this is the way our networks work, and you should know the basics to it. So if it's a non-security protocol or device, but it's something we use a lot, you should know what it is. If it's non-security and it's from the past or maybe the future, but we don't use it today, I wouldn't worry about it much. Past, definitely not. Maybe we're going to use it, maybe like a sentence or 2, but that's it. Okay, so IP version 4 has no security. IP version 6, does it have any security? And the answer is a bit. Literally a bit. It has a hook that, if enabled, says we are using IP security, IPsec. So it isn't really IPv6 that has the security. It just tells us we're using IPsec, which we didn't have in the past with IP version 4. IP security came about after IP version 4. So just in a general security question, is IP security in any way, shape, or form? I'd go, no, not really. No. But IPv6 does have a hook and says, hey, we are using IPsec on this connection, or nope, we're not using it. All right, so looking at IP version 4, let's start there. In case you've never seen an IP address, there you go. If you've seen IP addresses and you know how to subnet, you're good. Move on. That's it. Subnetting on this exam? No, but if you know how to subnet, you know more than you need for this test. So IP addresses, if you have never seen one, it has 4 bytes, or we say 4 octets. Octet and byte is basically the same thing. An octet, let me write down here where you can see that yellow. An octet, oct means we have 8. So there's going to be 8 bits. A byte is generally 8 bits. Side note, there are 7-bit protocols out there. Do you need to know anything about them? No, but that's why we have the word byte, and separately we use the word octet. Octet is just simply very specific and says that we have an 8-byte field. So 8 bytes, each byte represents one of those numbers. So 116 would be represented within these 8 bits, or the 57 would be represented in another 8 bits. Do you need to know that much for the test? No, but that's the logic that we have here. So this is just the basic foundation. You don't need to be able to subnet for the test. That's not what we're doing on the test. You don't need to be able to work in binary, but this is the language that we use around IP. And as security managers, if you're working around networking people, this is the language that comes out of our mouth on a regular basis. So IP version 4 has an 8, say that again. IP version 4 has a 4-byte address. So since each byte is 8 bits, 8 times 4 gives you a 32-bit address. So the total number of addresses that we have is 2 to the power of 32. Do you have to do math on this test? No. But again, it's just the language that's used around here. How many addresses is that? A lot. But it's actually not enough. When IP version 4 was invented, it looked like a crazy large amount of addresses that we would never get to. Today, we're there. Think about your house. How many different things do you have in your house that have IP addresses? So if they're on the network in any way, shape, or form, they have an IP address. When IP version 4 was invented, barely anybody had a single computer at their house. Today, at my house, let's see, I've got 4 light bulbs, each with networking addresses. I have a doorbell, my front lock. So I guess that's 6. I have different watering stations for my bonsai when I'm home and I have that set up. My TV, printer, phone, tablet, desktop, 2 laptops. I don't need them, but what do I do with them? And it goes on and on. So each of those devices needs an address, where when this was invented, hardly anybody had a computer at their house. If anybody. I'd have to go back and look at time to be able to even confirm that. So IP version 4 looked like a really large address, and today it's not enough. So for that reason, what we invented, I was involved. I wasn't involved. What they invented was RFC 1918. And I need a different color. I need to fix my slides so I don't have to keep doing this. Let's go with black. All right, so RFC 1918 was invented quite a long time ago to solve this problem. They could see it was coming, and they said, okay, tell you what, in your house or in your business, use whatever you want. Before RFC 1918, every single device had an IP address, and it was registered with ICANN. There's a registering agency out there. I don't need to get into it, but it was a globally registered address. Today, no. What's in our house or what's in our business, we don't register. We use private addressing. So in my house, my devices have an address of 192.168. something, and there's a really good chance your house is the same. Literally the same address in 192.168. So we call these non-routable. The internet would not know what to do. If you sent a packet out into the network, the internet addressed at 192.168 something, the internet would go, I don't know what to do with that. It's nowhere and everywhere. If you know addressing and you know how to subnet, you might have changed your address at your house to something like 172. Most businesses probably have a 10 dot address. It really depends on the network administrator and how they've designed things and what kind of addressing they want to use. Okay, so RC 1918, let me clear this off. RC 1918 is something that you should be familiar with for this test because, again, this is what we do. This is the language that we use. We use private addressing. What also would be good is we have different classes of address, class A, B, C, and there's more, but we're not going there. So just A, B, and C. Class A, what that means is the all right, so when looking at IP addresses, what we do is we take those 4 bytes or 4 octets and we divide in some way. So that line is going to go somewhere. It could be in the middle of one of the octets or bytes, or it could be literally between, kind of as I drew it. And what that does is it allows us to address the network versus the device itself. And any end device on a network we call a host. So with a class A address, the first byte tells us the network that we're on, and the next 3 bytes are reserved for the devices we're going to plug into that network. So this leaves a lot of room. We have 8 bits on each of those. That's a lot of room to address a lot of devices. So if you're in a data center or something like that, or if you have a business location where the floor that you're on, floor 4, 5, 6, whatever, the floor that you're on is huge. I mean, it can take a while to walk from one end to the other. Then that means that we have a lot of devices that we have to address, and 10 dot addressing allows us a lot of flexibility inside of there. I could use that in my house. Nothing says you can't, but if you're in a space that has a lot of devices, Class A addresses make things a lot easier to manage and build out the network. So at the house, 192.168 is quite sufficient. First part, 192.168 tells us our network. Are you breaking anything down like this on the test? No. But again, this is the language that we use, network versus host. And as we get into this, we call it subnetting. Don't need to subnet on the test, but that's the language. That's what we're dealing with. So intending this as a good introduction into networking, good introduction into IP. So you have a nice, good foundation if you're ever talking to networking people. But we're not subnetting on this test. It's a management test. Hope IC2 is listening. We should not be subnetting on this test. All right. And then the Class B address is 172.16 all the way up through 172.31. So the second octet here could have anything from the range, within that range, 16 to 31. So there's a lot of flexibility as far as your choices when it's a Class B address. Again, same thing. I could use that in my house. We could use that in a business. It's less space. It's a little bit less flexibility in the business. It doesn't mean you can't use it or shouldn't use it. It's all in the design. It all depends on how the network's been established, how we're subnetting, how many devices, who the network administrators are, and things like that. So average business, probably Class A, 10 dot. Average home, Class C, 192.168. It's private. It's non-routable. If you send something into the internet with any of these addresses, internet doesn't know what to do because literally it's everywhere, which means they don't know where it is, so it might as well be nowhere. It's everywhere and nowhere. All right, so IP version 4, very old, not enough addressing space. It was a couple decades worth of, we're going to move to IPv6. We're finally using it, but we're still using IP version 4, but we're also using IPv6. It's redesigning networks, getting all of our devices, all of our end stuff supports IPv6 these days. If you're buying anything from Apple or Microsoft or Cisco or HP, name your vendors, IPv6 is built into those things today. All right, so with a private address within the business or your house, and a public address has to be registered if you're on the internet or MPLS or any place else. If you're outside of the business, so LAN is inside. If you're outside of the business, MPLS, or in the other picture I had the internet, that address must be registered, which means we have to translate. So looking at this router, it's attached to two networks. It's attached to the LAN, so it would have a private address, and it's attached to MPLS, or it could be attached to the internet, and it would have a publicly registered address. The publicly registered address is geographically significant, what I originally said about IP addresses. Because they're not big enough, private addresses have no geographic representation. Anywhere and everywhere. Who knows where 10 dot is or 192.168, which means, so if a router has this attachment to both the internal LAN and the external wide area network or internet, it has to translate. It's not confused. It actually knows what's outside versus what's inside. And that's its job. Routers are layer 3 devices. Routers know IP addresses, not switches. Remember, a switch is layer 2. Switches use MAC addresses, at least the primary ones that we use today. So our router has addresses both on the private network and the public network, which means we have to translate. The translation occurs through something called NAT, Network Address Translation. So it would be able to convert from the internal 192 network to the external 21.43 and then back. So I've picked a registered address randomly. Who knows where that address actually is, but wherever this router is, it would be geographically representative. So the internet could find it, or MPLS could find where that address is. Excuse me, guys. Okay, so network address translation translates between the two. And there's a second piece, it's called PAT, port address translation. Getting to that, if you know what that is, again, you've gone beyond what you need for CISSP, but there are two pieces. It is network address and port address translation. We just usually talk about NAT exclusively here in CISSP. Okay, and then on the other side, again, I forgot the story. I had a laptop trying to connect to a server. I think we were going to Netflix or something. On the other side, if this was Netflix or Amazon or whoever, they've got their internal address, 10 dot. Every device has its own IP address, 192.168.0.5, 10.70.40.2. So on the LAN here, we have 10.70, or it's 10 dots, but 10.70.40.1 is this port on the router. Why? Because that's where my arrow pointed. And again, the router has to have a publicly registered address on the port that connects to the outside world. And I give it a publicly registered address of 231.12.15.22. Anything other than 10, 172.16 up to 31, or 192.168 would be a publicly registered address, and it means something. So off the top of my head, I don't know where those addresses are, but if you looked it up, it would tell you what country it's in at least. Let's see. So anything else? Oh, so the next thing we have is a view of an IPv6 address. So moving on up to IPv6, it is 128 bits. So divide by 8, that means it's 16. It's literally 16 bytes or 16 octets long. It's much, much longer. So IPsec to us today looks like an unbelievably large number of addresses that we're never going to get to. But we've said that in the past, so who knows what our future holds. And there may be a day where we run out of IPv6 addresses, that we don't have enough to address everything on the planet. All right, but otherwise, that's a problem for tomorrow. So here is one IPv6 address, and this is how it's commonly written. So it's not dots, it's colons in between two octets. So we attach 2 together, we put a colon, 2 octets or 2 bytes, put a colon, 2 octets, put a colon. In the middle is going to be a long string of zeros at this point. Double colon means everything in between it is zeros. You can only do this once within an address. So if there is a long, 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 long string of zeros in the middle, which is common today, we just squish it down. We have the 2 bytes of zeros, 2 bytes of zeros, and then something to say everything else in the middle is 0. So goodness. So add everything up, and whatever you're missing, you can fill it in with zeros. All right, so IPv6. With that, we have an IPv6 header. Now, on this test, again, we're managers. Seeing a header on the test doesn't make much sense. But this is a good opportunity for me to tell you there are drag and drop questions that do exist in the database. Whether or not you will see a drag and drop question, I don't know. Chances are pretty slim, and if you saw one, it'd probably be one question. But drag and drop questions would allow, so if we emptied out the IPv6 header and we took the word version, put it over here, take traffic class, put it over here, flow label, put it over here, payload length, put it over here. So empty out the space, and then the question, if it was a drag and drop, would say, okay, where does the version go? And you literally grab version and you would have to drag it and drop it in its right location. So at least you've heard about that before you get to the test. It is possible, not probable, just possible. And this is one of the best opportunities I have to tell you about that. It's also possible to have hotspot questions. So another discussion for another day. But drag and drop, the other thing, it could be a list of things, like a list of steps to go through, and you have to drag them into the right order, which is a little less panicky than a header. Possibly depends on you, but that is also possible. So drag and drop the steps and put them in the right order. All right, so IPv6 header, that's it. What is, I think, interesting is what we always have first is the source, and what we always have second is the destination. It's like, think about where you literally are right now. If you're home, coffee shop, if you're at the office, you are where you are, source. And if you're driving home or you're driving to the coffee shop, the destination is the coffee shop. So if I'm home and I'm going to the coffee shop, source, I'm home, destination, I'm going to the coffee shop. So it's always in that order. Do you need that? I don't know, but like that's kind of on the edge of maybe that's more information than you need. The double zeros, maybe that's more information than you need. But again, this is the basics of IP. It's kind of fun. It's more than I actually get to go into in regular CISSP classes, because this really isn't the security, but at the same time, I think this is good to know before you go into the test. Because this is what we do. This is how we work. This is how we function. All right, let's see. Anything else I want to say? No. All right. So that's it for IP. If you dug in a little bit deeper, can't hurt. But if all of that gets to be a comfortable level, you're definitely in good shape for this test. Subnetting for the test you shouldn't see a header. At least I've told you about it. I can't think of anything else. Okay, so that's it. I will see you in the next video. Have a good one. All right, stop the video. All right, 4 of you are here with me. Do you have questions about IP? Anything I can answer? Happy to answer. Otherwise, thanks for being here. Give me a like if you would. If you haven't, give me a follow. Get notifications. This is actually, I'm not recording as much as I would like to, but it is good motivation to get me online and get me recording. I need to get this thing done. Thanks. I got one like. Appreciate it. What do you think, Finn? All right. So networking, the thing with networking is the more you know you don't know. It's just truly an overwhelming topic. So I find myself stopping periodically. Okay, wait, do I have to go that far? Do you need to know that much? I literally have been teaching this for 3 decades. 32 years I've been teaching networking. Whew, I'm old. I've earned my gray hair. But you don't have to know all of that. SSH, I'd be happy to do SSH next. The way I do SSH is I do TLS first. I really don't go into. All right, so I need to think my way through, because I don't normally teach. Yeah, okay. All right, I'll do SSH. Secure FTP is just going to be using TLS. FTP Secure uses SSH. So when you take a layer 7 protocol and you add a letter S to it, that means you're adding either TLS or SSH. It is being recorded. I don't know if they're available on my channel under live. You can look at my videos, my shorts. I've got them. I don't know if I have to click on something to make them available. The other thing I'm really thinking about doing, I'm still really toying with this idea. So I have my CCSP class up on Udemy, and it is not paying the bills. I'm in deep trouble. It's not paying the bills. And Udemy is being bought by Coursera. Okay, good, thanks. It's under live. So the ones I've done so far this way are under live. So this will show up under live. So Udemy is being bought by Coursera, and I don't know what that's gonna do as a creator. So I'm thinking maybe I'll just break the mold. Everybody else has all of their CISSP content behind a paywall of some sort. It's on Coursera, it's on Udemy, it's on what's the one that starts with the letter P? I think. I'm thinking maybe I'll just make my recordings available on YouTube. So the recording I just did of IPsec, I think I might just make them all available on YouTube. I have my course available on my website as I'm building it. But advertising is not my skill. So if you guys have thoughts about that, what do you think? I'm all ears. Otherwise, sure, I'm happy to do SSH next. Okay, I need to start a new recording thing. I use Camtasia to create my recordings. Use OpenClaw for advertising. What the heck is OpenClaw? All right, let me just open a tab. See how many tabs I get open. All right, so what is OpenClaw? Personal AI assistant. The AI that actually does things. All right, thanks. I will check into that. Yeah, people, that does work, but so the other thing, my other problem is I can't really teach live courses anymore. It's really a problem. It's not secure yet. Okay, thanks. I have MS, and my exhaustion really gets the best of me. So buying a live course would be the best financial option, but I'm really struggling at this point to do that. Once you're diagnosed, the average prediction is 10 years you won't be able to work anymore. And it's been over 10 years and I really am struggling. But buying a recorded course, sure. But again, Udemy doesn't pay. Udemy takes almost all the money. If you buy anything from Udemy, almost everything goes to Udemy. Very little goes to us. All right, so let's do SSH. Let's just move on. All right. SSH. Save my project. And record. Okay. Even just getting these recordings done is a struggle. But it helps having you guys here and listening. Now I'm talking to somebody and you're there and relying on me. Actually helps. So thanks for being here. Tell anybody else you know that's prepping for CISSP. I'm doing this. Subscribe to my channel. Get notifications. Who knows when I go live, but if you're available, join me. And then if not, the lives are immediately available. It's within, I'd say, an hour or so after the live ends. It's available now that you've confirmed that you can see it. Otherwise, I have a lot of other videos on my channel. How to think like a manager. I have a 10-minute one, which I recommend. If you want longer, I did an hour video as well. I do lots of practice questions. I don't do near as many as Probnair does. I think that's how he says his name. My apologies, Prob, if I got that wrong. Otherwise, here we go. Let's do SSH. All right, welcome back. Let's talk about secure shell, SSH. So the first thing, so we have those three questions. What's its purpose? What layer? And does it have security? Let's start at the bottom. Does it have security? Yes. It's even in its name. So if the answer is yes, it has security, this is definitely something that you want to know for the test. Second question, what layer is it? Answer is layer 5. I promise. It's not what everybody says. A lot of people say that it's application layer or layer 7. I'm right. I can prove it. It's layer 5. And any debates like that, so I can back it up. I can prove that I'm right. But especially numbers like that, especially layers, there's a few things that there's some debates that occur as to what layer it is. If that question was to occur on the test, it is not worth many points. Pick an answer, move on. If layer 7 is the only, so the answers are 1, 4, 1, 2, 3, and 7, take 7. If the answers are 1, 2, 3, 4, and you wanted 7, or it's 1, 2, 3, 5, and you wanted 7, well, guess what? It's layer 5. But it's not worth many points, so don't stress about it. It's not something that we really need to argue or debate. All right, so what's its purpose? All right, so what's its purpose? Its purpose is secure communications, and it is most commonly used by network administrators. Network administrators use secure shell to communicate with firewalls or to use it to communicate with routers or switches or servers. It is a encrypted connection. All right, so the short version, which might be all you need for the test, really might be all you need for the test. If it has the word secure in it, that means it has two things. It encrypts the conversation and it has authentication. So short version, that applies to IPsec, that applies to TLS, formerly known as SSL. If it has the word secure in it, it adds encryption and authentication. End of story. All right. What does that mean? Let's go. Well, let's actually talk about it. But that might be all you need for the test. All right. So encryption. Going back to everybody's favorite topic, cryptography. If you haven't seen my videos on that, I recommend it because I simplify things. So there are 3 topics. We have symmetric, asymmetric, my brain, how it works sometimes, asymmetric, and message integrity controls. Most common thing in there being hashes. Symmetric is used for confidentiality. Asymmetric is used to share symmetric keys, or it's used for authentication. Hashes are used for integrity. So if we're encrypting, it could be symmetric or asymmetric. When somebody says, I'm encrypting this transmission, I'm encrypting the voice, I'm encrypting the video, I'm encrypting something, they mean confidentiality. When we're talking about asymmetric and we encrypt, we actually say authenticity or digital signatures is the common language. Do you need something? That's what happens in my videos, and then I have to edit things out. What? The dog is making funny noises over there. What are you doing? Just stay over there. Okay. What was I talking about? All right, so authenticity. All right, so if somebody says encrypt, they mean symmetric. So symmetric is going to be used by these devices. So in this picture, I have a client and a server. With SSH, it doesn't have to be client server. You could have a server on both sides, or you could have a client on both sides. TLS is specific. TLS requires client server. All right, so I have a client and I have a server. And these 2 devices are going to communicate by the time we're done with this in a secure fashion, meaning it's going to be encrypted. With what? With symmetric. So they both have to have a copy of the symmetric key. That's what we have to get to, is where they both have a copy of the symmetric key. It's in the picture as a public-private key. That's another part of the story. So at the end of it, they both have a symmetric key that allows them to encrypt what they're sending, and the other side can decrypt. And that way, the communication is protected. All right, so how do we get there? Let me clear everything off of here because it's a mess. All right, so in order to get there, the first thing that happens is there's an initiate of that SSH connection that occurs first. What comes back? Random challenge message. This is going to be the beginning of our symmetric key. This would be sent in the clear. So funny things that we do in order to get to encrypted is we often start in the, well, we start in the clear before it's encrypted, but part of the magic of creating symmetric keys can be sent in the clear. Something's going to happen over here at the client, and what it's going to do is it's going to encrypt a message that has a source of this random number with their private key. The server on the other side would then have the matched public key. So this is the client's private key and the client's public key. Server has the public key. They can then decrypt that message. So private public keys are needed in order to be able to make this thing work. So what is it that they would send? They're encrypting something with a private key. Please don't jump over there right now. Don't. She's trying to jump on my dash. I'm in my RV. I don't like this picture. I don't like this explanation. I usually do SSH by way of TLS. All right, so I don't like this recording. I'm going to stop this recording. All right, but I will continue for your benefit. I need to redesign my slides, but for you, I will continue SSH. So the public-private key pair, if you have a client and you have a server. Lily, it's okay, just wait. So the client server just not a good picture. It was made available under a group of pictures on the internet that are free to use. I really need to create my own. So let me do this. I'll draw this out for you, and that'll actually help me figure out what I want to put on the slides. All right, so if we have a network administrator connecting to a server that they want to manage. It's a database icon because I can't draw. And then we have a network administrator over here and they're trying to work. What they want is SSH and they want it encrypted. The SSH connection is initiated. And it could be initiated by either side. It's not a client-server relationship. It could actually be two servers or it could be what we actually call two clients. But then we need public-private key pairs. If we don't have that, it is actually possible to use Diffie-Hellman or something Diffie-Hellman-like if public-private key pairs don't exist. But if we have a public-private key pair like what was in that picture, so hold on, my dog is just in need of help. Go on. She'll make that jump when I'm not here. All right. Hey, how are you? So SSH, we could use something like Diffie-Hellman, but we don't have to. I work better with it over on the server. That's really what's screwing me up with this slide that I have. Okay, go away. We're working. We have a public-private key pair. And the server is public-private key pair. So the client will end up with a server's public key. The server could send their public key. We could obtain the public key manually. Network administrator could actually plug those two into either side, or they could obtain it from a public key server someplace. So somehow that public key gets over there. Once that's the case, then the server could send something encrypted with their private key, and the client would then decrypt with the server's public key. That allows us to exchange something that allows us to get into symmetric keys. The simplest thing to encrypt, which can be done in SSH, is encrypt a symmetric key. That doesn't work. Oh, it's going to go the other way. So they can decrypt with a public key, but then they could encrypt with a public key. See, so if we encrypted something, they would then decrypt with their private key. The problem is what I started there, encrypt a symmetric key. That doesn't work because it's decrypted with a public key, which is public. We don't want to do that, which is why we had a random number that was being sent. So if we have a random number that's sent, doesn't have to be encrypted, but send that random number, the client can then use that to generate a symmetric key. They can then encrypt it with a public key. So we have a symmetric key, and it's encrypted with the server's public key. The server can then decrypt it with their private key, and when they do that, they now have the symmetric key. So this is what happens with TLS, formerly known as SSL, and SSH. They both can work this way. They can also both use Diffie-Hellman, which is a different story altogether. But SSH or TLS, this is what it's doing. So Siri, you had asked about SFTP. FTP is just going to be the traffic that's going to be sent after this. So FTP traffic or administrative traffic, I mean, they could be literally logging into the desktop of the server and working. So, but with SFTP, the traffic is now that file transfer encrypted with a symmetric key. Or this is SSH, so the SSH conversation, which could be not a virtual desktop, but the desktop conversation. Thanks. Go away. We're working. Kind of stuff makes me nuts. But the SSH, so the desktop, so the network administrator is logged into a server, and they're on the desktop. They see the server's desktop, and they are working. They're configuring. That conversation is encrypted with a symmetric key. Same thing that we do with HTTP. So HTTP traffic could be the end result, and that's going to be encrypted with a symmetric key. Yeah, it's nothing but it. It's SFTP is FTP wrapped inside of SSH. FTPS is wrapped inside of TLS. Why? Because I'm not in charge of naming these things. So that's really all that we're doing when we're dealing with TLS, SSH, SSL, or we then say HTTPS, FTPS, or SFTP. Could be either one. What other ones do we do? Our remote procedure call, I think we can do. So, yeah, we can do secure remote procedure call, which is putting remote procedure call inside of SSH. So in CISSP class, I never go into layer 7 protocols. Look like your mom. Go away. I forgot how to. I move the mute button so I can easily mute when they start barking. Because you said it was really loud before. Okay. So does that help on the SSH? You can see I really need to design my own SSH slide, own SSH picture. I usually teach this in class by doing TLS first. I'm like, okay, let's talk about SSH, and there it is. It's the same thing. Security, network security. Okay, good. Who had asked about SSH? Oh, Siri, it was you. Sorry. Thought it had been somebody else. Thought I had 2 different requests. Well, it's 2 different requests, but I thought it came from 2 different people. All right. So, same story with TLS. Trying to build an open cloud project. Okay. I don't know what to say about that. Other than good luck. Oh, thanks. I appreciate that. I'm horrible at marketing. I had an assistant, but I don't anymore. That's really detrimental. All right. So that's SSH. IP. IPsec is a little bit of a different story, but at the end of the day, we end up at the same place. The traffic is encrypted with symmetric. We use asymmetric to deal with exchanging the symmetric key, but in IPsec, there are no public-private key pairs. It would be Diffie-Hellman or something Diffie-Hellman-like. What can we do by preaching it? I don't know what you mean, Carrie. Carrie Fun Zone. All right, I'm going to call it quits. That was good for me today. IPsec has tunnel and transport mode. It does both. I still sharing my... Oh, where's... Okay, I'm still sharing. Okay. So IPsec has both tunnel mode and transport mode. Can we see CCTV and biometric access? I don't know what you're talking about. We're getting ready for a security test. This is underneath the hood of how everything works, not what you can see as a end user. So we're in a slightly different place, Carrie. Carrie Fun Zone. All right, Siri, anything else you want real quick? Any other burning questions for the moment? Wow, almost at an hour. That is pretty good for me today. My MS drives my life. No? Okay. I'm going to sign off. You guys have a good evening. I will do this again tomorrow. Okay, good. Hopefully I'll see you tomorrow. Otherwise, keep watching for my live streams. Have a good one. You're welcome. Thanks for being here. Bye-bye.